Hey there folks, and welcome back for another video. I'm your host CDB or Chris, and today I'm doing a video that has been requested many times. And that is shaving brush care. And shaving brush care actually starts with use. And by that I mean how you use your brush is important. The first thing that I have to get out there is follow the manufacturer recommendations on how the brush is to be used. A lot of people don't realize that if you go look at Simpsons, for example, which is a legendary brush making company, when you look at their Badger brushes, of which this is not, this is a West Coast shaving Badger. When you go look at the instructions, and I'll cut a little piece of it and show you on the screen. When you look at it, it talks about lathering the soap, and it says to do it gently, and it says to use painting strokes on your face rather than swirling strokes, because that twisting that you do with swirling can break bristles, fiber, and so on. Now, let me get to one thing before I get heavily into that. The best thing you can do to start out with when using any brush, but especially Badger and Boar, is to make sure you soak your brush. I like to use a container like the PAA Brush Scuttle, which is very inexpensive, $17.95. And you can put warm water in this part, and then the top goes down like that. And you can also fill this reservoir with warm water and soak your brush. And also you can pour the warm water out, and then in between passes, when you put your brush in the scuttle, it will keep it sort of warm, which is very cool. And again, the PAA version is $17.95, which is way cheaper than about any brush scuttle that I have ever seen. I'll have a link below if you're interested. So first we soak our brush. Now, one thing that I want to mention about soaking your brush, you don't need to soak the brush above, say, right this part right here. Nothing whatsoever good happens by soaking the brush on up over the handle, because now you're submerging the epoxy, and while it is robust, there is no reason whatsoever to soak the handles, especially if you have a wooden brush like this. Do not soak your brush above about right there. That's all you need to soak it to. That the remaining part will naturally get water as you start working your brush. No reason whatsoever to ever submerge your brush above where the base of the knot is. It is just a bad idea. There is nothing to gain from it. I'm saying it over and over because it's critically important. The temperature of the water that you soak your brush in, generally speaking, should be no warmer than what your hand can tolerate. So you turn your bathroom sink on, turn the warm water on as hot as you can take it, put it in there, soak it up to about this part right here, no higher. Trust me, this is wise counsel. Nothing good happens from submerging your entire handle. I can't emphasize that enough. Anyway, the amount of time you can soak it, 5 minutes generally to 10. Again, you can refer to your manufacturer's documentation, but generally speaking, in 5 minutes, the Badger hair, the Boar hair become more pliable, and they're less prone to breaking. When you're using a synthetic brush, it's not critical that you soak it. You can if you want to. It will not hurt it, but it is not required. Some people like to soak it to warm it up a little bit, especially if it's a loft that sets short. It'll loosen it up a little bit and it displays better, but it is absolutely not required. Generally speaking, the synthetic fiber is far more durable than Badger hair or Boar. It just is. There's no doubt about it. It can take a lot more. It dries faster. It's a lot simpler to deal with generally. Anyway, after you've soaked your brush, generally you squeeze it a little bit. Now, don't pull down on your knot when you're squeezing. Just hold your hand in place and squeeze it. That's all you have to do. Gentle squeezing. Do not put a monster grab on that and pull it down. Again, nothing good happens from that. Squeeze it out, load your brush. Now, if you're going to make lather in a bowl and you're going to swirl, again, keeping in mind that most manufacturers of natural hair brushes recommend against swirling, but everybody does it, let's be honest. If you're going to swirl, make sure you're swirling in the opposite direction as well. So swirl a little bit this way, swirl a little bit that way. I also like to go back and forth, which is generally what the manufacturers recommend. So I'll go back and forth. I will swirl a little bit, but with natural hair brushes, Swirling a whole lot with heavy pressure when you're mashing down is generally not the best idea. You can do it, everybody does it, but when you are swirling, I don't recommend that you mash the knot all the way down and swirl. That's not good for a natural hair brush. Push it down part of the way and swirl, not all the way down. That's generally not good for any brush, but particularly natural hair. So push it down, swirl a little bit, change directions, go back and forth. If you are going to swirl, it's best in my view to make sure you're not just always swirling in one direction, because you're wearing the hair in that circular motion all the time in a particular direction, and it can weaken it. Horsehair also is prone to tangling, so be careful with that. Generally speaking, again, the manufacturer's recommending painting strokes and being gentle with badger knots. Again, no mashing all the way down. That's really not what that brush is designed to do. Okay, so what we're going to do now, I'm going to go ahead and load this brush up. I will get some lather in it, and then we'll go to the sink and show you how we actually rinse the brush out after use. Stand by. And all right, as you can see here, we've got some lather in our brush. What I'm going to do is turn the warm water on, like so, and get the water a little warm. It's best to rinse your brush with warm water, not hot, just warm is fine, because that will help remove the lather from your knot, and it's also better for your drain not to use cold water to rinse your brush. So this part here, I'm going to move our camera slightly so you can see a little better. It's not rocket science. We're just simply holding the brush under the water. As you can see, I'm twisting the brush in my hand and just rinsing it out really good. And generally speaking, what you should do is whenever you think you're finished, rinse it a little bit more. So we rinse, and then we'll look at the brush. You can squeeze it. If it's sticking together, generally that means there's more soap in it, so we'll continue to rinse. And I'm squeezing the knot at the base. Again, I'm not pulling, I'm just squeezing gently at the base. You can run your fingers through it like so. We're just rinsing repeatedly. And again, a lot of times it takes more time than you think it will. And so we've rinsed pretty good. Let's turn the water off and see what we have. Okay, so it's going to clump together a little bit, but after I start drying this out, if these fibers are clumping, that's bad. It needs more rinsing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the camera now, and then we'll put it back on its normal position. Then I'll show you what I do with this on the towel. Stay tuned. And all right, so you can see we have our wet brush now. What I generally do is hold the base of the knot. Now I will squeeze it, and that water will come out like so. I'm just doing it on the sink there a little bit for you. Again, not pulling down, just squeezing and removing that water. After I've done that, I'm going to go back to the towel. And we're just going to gently paint it on the towel. And we'll move it to different areas. You've seen Chris from Another Cut Above do this. And it's the exact same thing that I do for my brushes. You just continually to do it like that on the towel. Now, some people like to flick the brushes like that. You can do that. If you're worried about the knot, hold the base of the knot like so. So you're actually putting some pressure on the knot, and then you can flick it. If you're worried about exerting too much pressure, if you hold the end of the handle like this and you're flicking, there is some pressure involved in that. The knot could come loose. I've only had one knot fail that way, and it was a badger brush, and it started losing chunks of hair initially, and then it just came completely out. So knots can fail, particularly if you don't dry them out. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But again, just paint with your brush on the towel. Twist it in your hand, paint, twist it, paint. And after a while, you'll see as you look at the end of the brush, nothing is clumped together. It's pretty dry to the touch. Now it's still going to be wet a little bit inside, but your brush has been dried off. It's just damp at this point. No clumping. If you see any sort of clumping in the ends, it's time to rinse. You need to rinse and repeat that process of drying. It will look just like it is when it's dry when you're finished painting on the towel. That part is very important. And this last part is also important. From this point, what I recommend that you do, you're either going to use a stand like this, or Fendrahin has an adjustable stand. And the reason why this one is adjustable, so if we have a brush like this, a stand like this works perfectly. It'll fit right in there, no problem. But a bigger brush like this, it does not fit properly. Now, you can still use this. All you have to do is really cant the brush like that, and that'll be just fine. That's no problem whatsoever. So even if you have a small stand, you can cant that brush, and that's fine. I do not recommend that you put a wet brush like this down. I always recommend you hang it up this way, and the reason why is, I know from experience, I followed the same practice that I had here, and I would set my brush on the sink top, and the end of the brush started getting residue in it. And also, this part right here got white residue in it as well. And if you have harder water, you have even a greater chance to have those sort of deposits. That doesn't happen if you turn it down this way. Now, this Fenderhin adjustable brush stand, by the way, this top unscrews, and it will fit just about any size brush. So you adjust it to whatever size you need it, screw it down, and it'll fit your brush. I'm not going to put this one in it now, but if you haven't seen this, they do sell these at Fenderhin. They're about $38, and this will accommodate almost any size brush because, again, it adjusts to a very, very large size. It adjusts to that big. So all you really have to do, I'll go ahead and show you, is you put your brush, it's a little bit fidgety when you try to do it on camera. Put your brush whatever the knot size is, like so, and then you just screw it down, and it stores it like so. Of course, I can't do it on camera, but it works, trust me. If you have neither of those options, you can use something like this, stand by. What I have here is just a coat hanger, and I just sort of tied a lasso, tight knot, in the end of some paracord here, and you cinch it down, and you can hang your brush like so, just from a coat hanger. You can hang it up there or anywhere, and it'll work just fine. I do not like storing brushes that are wet this way, and I've learned that from experience, so take it from me. You can get these sort of deposits. Even when you think it's dry, like if other people are in the bathroom and they're getting the sink wet and it gets water on the bottom of the brush, you see those white spots, that's what can happen. And also, a lot of times you think the brush is completely dry and it's not, and water can run down and pool in this little crevice here if your brush has any designs like this. It'll find its way there and you'll have a white film, like mineral type deposit. So make sure your brush is completely dry. Store it this way, or at a minimum this way, until it's completely dry. With a synthetic, you're talking about half the day usually, but I let mine set for a full day. It's completely dry. Then I'll turn it this way and put it on a shelf, but not until it's 100% dry. Trust me, learn from my mistakes. I will clean this brush up, but I left it this way just so I could show you the video. I wish I hadn't removed that film right there. Again, highly advise that at minimum you put it in a brush holder like this and cant it downwards, so any moisture will, gravity will take care of it. Or you can use a makeshift method like this. Either way, you're going to be far better off if you let that brush dry. If you are using natural hair, minimum 24 hours drying, and a lot of times 48. They don't dry nearly as fast as synthetic brushes. What happens is, if you don't let them dry, you can start mildew and mold at the base of the knot, which attacks the epoxy, and it can cause you to start losing hair, and the knot can eventually fail. Really, really important if you're using natural hair brushes that you own more than one, so you can rotate them. I would go with at least 3. That way you can have a couple of days between each use. If you keep this wet constantly, it's really not a good thing. So get a couple of brushes, or buy some inexpensive synthetics if you have a really nice badger. That's why you see most people rotating them. It's not just so they can use the other brushes, it's so they can dry out. Again, synthetics, they require far less time. Generally within a few hours, they're completely dry. It's just the nature of the type of materials they're made by. But please, do not set your brush like this on a shelf until it is completely dry. Again, learn from my mistakes. I know I have repeated a lot of things in this video, but there's a reason for it. I've been down the road, I've done things wrong, and I've done things right, and I can tell you for sure, if you follow these instructions, take care of your brushes, dry them thoroughly, make sure you get all the soap out of the knot. You're going to be very happy. This is just daily type care I'm talking here. You can also deep clean them periodically. That's a different video that I'll bring to you later. Anyway, as always, I want to thank you so much for watching. And until next time, I want to remind you, it's your shave, do it your way. But with brush care, do it my way and you'll be better off. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. God bless.